Open this door now." His voice echoed like thunder. It was Stephen, an oil tycoon who loved his wife more than life itself. We invite you to today's story that is of love and breakthrough. Stay with us as we take you through the ride. Let us know which country you are watching from in the comments section, and don't forget to subscribe. The night was too quiet, too silent, almost like the world was holding its breath. A tall, rusty warehouse stood in the middle of an abandoned area in Lekki. The wind pushed against the metal walls, making them groan like something inside was crying. A single dim bulb hung above the door, trembling, as if it was scared of what it was lighting. And then, bang, bang, bang! A man's angry voice cut through the night. "Open this door now!" His voice echoed like thunder. It was Stephen, the 35-year-old billionaire who loved his wife more than life itself. Now standing outside a warehouse, chest rising fast, eyes burning with fear and rage. Inside that warehouse, his wife Doris was being held hostage. Her soft voice had begged for help during the last phone call, and Stephen had rushed here without telling anyone. His heart pounded so loudly it felt like it could break out of his chest. He slammed the door again. "I said open this door. Give me my wife." Silence. Then footsteps. Slow, heavy, threatening. Stephen stepped back, his fists clenched, his whole body shaking. Not because he was afraid, but because he loved Doris too much to lose her. Suddenly, a deep voice growled from inside. "Come alone, or she dies." The door rattled. A lock clicked. A shadow moved. Stephen swallowed hard. He had no idea that this night would expose betrayal, secrets, and a conspiracy far bigger than he imagined. Earlier, the sun had just started setting over Lagos when Doris stepped out of a restaurant with her 3 female friends. They had spent the evening laughing, sharing food, and teasing one another about relationships. Doris, at 30 years old, was joyful, beautiful, and gentle. Everyone who knew Stephen knew how deeply he treasured her. People said, "Stephen can give up the whole world for Doris. She is his heartbeat." But tonight something was wrong, something Doris didn't notice. A woman stood across the street pretending to buy suya, but her eyes never left Doris. That woman was Janet, someone Doris trusted, someone Stephen had helped many times, someone none of them suspected. Doris waved goodbye to her friends and walked toward her car. She didn't know that Janet was whispering into her phone. "She is moving. Don't miss her. Remember, I want the money you promised." Doris entered her car, humming a song, her mind still filled with laughter from the hangout. She turned the key, but before she could put the car in reverse, a white van screeched to a stop behind her. Her eyes widened. What is this?" 3 masked men jumped out. "Open the door," one shouted. Her hands shook violently. She locked the car immediately and screamed, "Help! Somebody help!" Glass shattered. A metal rod slammed against her window. Doris screamed louder, tears spilling. They dragged her out. Her legs kicked. Her voice cracked. "No, please, don't take me. My husband—" A cloth covered her mouth. Everything went black. At home, Stephen was in his office room, going through oil company files. He was tired but excited because tomorrow he planned to surprise Doris with a weekend trip. His phone rang. Unknown number. He picked up. "Hello?" A cold voice replied, "If you want your wife alive, come alone." Stephen froze. "My wife? What are you talking about? Where is Doris?" All he heard next was Doris's terrified, muffled scream. Then the line went dead. Stephen's whole body went cold. His heart pounded like a drum. He didn't think. He didn't breathe. He didn't call anybody. He jumped into his car and sped into the night. The warehouse door now creaked open an inch. A thin line of darkness stared at Stephen. A voice hissed from inside, "Step in, or she dies where she is." Stephen clenched his jaw so tightly that his teeth hurt. His heart raced like never before. He stepped forward, but just as he reached the door, a gun clicked behind him. Click. Stephen froze, slowly, very slowly. He turned his head. Standing behind him was a tall man in a black mask, pointing a gun directly at his back. Stephen swallowed hard. "What do you want from us?" he whispered. The masked man's voice was deep and full of wicked confidence. "We want your empire. Sign the papers inside, or forget you ever had a wife." Stephen's breathing shook. He took one step inside, another. The warehouse swallowed him like a hungry beast. And then, the door slammed shut behind him. The loud bang echoed through the whole place. Stephen felt trapped, alone, surrounded by shadows. But then, somewhere deeper in the darkness, he heard a familiar voice. Soft, weak, broken. "Stephen, please help me." His heart almost stopped. "Doris?" He tried to run toward the voice, but suddenly, a bright light hit his face. Men appeared from every corner, guns lifted, papers were dropped on a table. "Sign it," one growled, "and walk away alive." Stephen stared at the papers, then at the men. His hands trembled. He took a step forward, lifted the pen. And just then, the entire warehouse shook. Boom! A metal door burst open. Black-clad figures rushed in with flashlights and weapons. Stephen gasped. The abductors gasped. Someone shouted, "Sir, get down!" It was Stephen's personal security team. The team he never knew had secretly followed him for his protection. But the abductors quickly grabbed Doris and held a knife to her throat. Stephen screamed, "Don't hurt her!" The warehouse erupted in chaos, and then, just when it seemed like someone was about to pull the trigger, the warehouse exploded into noise, shouts, footsteps, gun clicks, and heavy breathing filling the cold air. Stephen dropped to his knees as his personal security team stormed in from the back entrance. Their boots hit the concrete floor like thunder. Flashlights cut through the darkness, sweeping over metal shelves, old machines, and the terrified eyes of masked abductors. But the danger was far from over. One of the kidnappers grabbed Doris roughly from behind and pressed a knife to her throat. Her eyes widened with fear. Tears streamed down her face. "Don't come any closer," the kidnapper screamed. Stephen's heart broke into pieces. "Please," he begged. His voice cracked like glass. "Please, leave my wife alone. She didn't do anything." The man behind Doris laughed, deep and evil. "You think we care? She is the only reason you obeyed us. You think you're safe now that your boys are here? Think again." Stephen tried to stand, but two guns turned toward him immediately. His guards shouted, "Stand down, sir. Don't move." But he couldn't sit still. He couldn't breathe properly. He couldn't think of anything except Doris's trembling hands. Before the chaos, before the danger, before the night turned bloody, Stephen and Doris lived a life filled with love. People said, "Stephen doesn't just love Doris, she is the air he breathes." Their wedding had shut down Victoria Island. Even the governor attended. Stephen was a billionaire at 35, known for kindness and loyalty. He trusted people easily, maybe too easily. And Doris, soft smile, gentle voice, heart full of kindness. She never cared about money, never asked for luxury. She only asked for Stephen's safety. But Stephen had entered the oil business, a place full of wolves. People wanted his downfall, and one of those wolves had chosen the most painful way to hurt him: his wife. Back to the warehouse, the kidnapper holding Doris dragged her toward the corner where old crates were stacked high. Stephen tried to rise again. "Let her go. I'll sign whatever you want. I'll leave the business. Just, please, don't hurt her." The leader smirked. "Oh, now you want to negotiate. Too late. We're done negotiating. You were supposed to sign earlier. Now? Now you pay. Doris shook her head weakly. Stephen, don't sign anything. Please. Don't give them what they want, she whispered through tears. Stephen's eyes shook. I can't lose you, Doris. Don't say that. Behind him, his security chief whispered urgently, Sir, when we make the distraction, move to your right. We will handle the rest. Stephen whispered back, I'm not leaving her. You won't, but you must trust us. Another kidnapper picked up one of the dropped guns and pointed it at the guards. If you move any closer, somebody dies. Choose who. Stephen's guards froze. Stephen swallowed hard, his chest hurt, his whole body trembled. Please, he said, voice breaking, don't hurt them, don't hurt my wife. The leader hissed, then sign. He threw the papers at Stephen's feet. Stephen stared at the documents. They were stamped with fake company names, contracts forcing him to step away from the oil business forever. His rivals had planned everything. Stephen slowly bent to pick up the papers, his fingers shaking, his eyes wet, his heart dying. Suddenly, a phone rang inside the warehouse. The leader answered it. What? He snapped. A female voice spoke from the other end. The moment Stephen heard it, his heart nearly stopped. It was Janet, the same Janet who sold Doris out. Her voice was cold. Make sure he signs it tonight. I want him out of the business before the board meeting tomorrow. Don't mess this up. Stephen froze. Janet? Doris had trusted her. Stephen had hired her. They gave her money, support, and kindness. And she betrayed them. Stephen's hands tightened into fists. His anger rose like a storm. Doris's eyes widened too. She tried to speak. Stephen. Janet did this. She... The kidnapper covered her mouth. Enough talking. Stephen's blood boiled. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Touch my wife again, and I swear you will regret it. The leader laughed. You're in no position to threaten us. But the guards saw it. That fire in Stephen's eyes. He was getting ready to fight, to risk everything, to protect the woman he loved beyond life. The leader pointed a gun directly at Doris's head. Last chance. Sign, or I end this now. Doris shook her head, tears falling. Stephen's heart screamed. He grabbed the pen, but just as he was about to sign, a loud metal bar smashed through the upper window. Glass rained down. Everyone turned. A small drone dropped a flash pellet on the floor. Bang! Bright white light filled the warehouse, blinding everyone. The guards rushed in. The kidnappers stumbled back. Doris fell to her knees. Stephen covered her with his body. Chaos exploded everywhere. Guns clicked. Men shouted. Someone screamed. And then, through the dust, through the confusion, through the flashing lights, Stephen suddenly realized something horrifying. Doris was no longer behind him. She had been snatched again in the confusion. A masked man dragged her toward the exit door. Stephen, she screamed. Stephen's head snapped up. His stomach dropped. His heart nearly stopped beating. He ran forward, but the kidnapper pressed a gun to Doris's head. One more step and she dies. Stephen froze. His guards froze. Time itself froze. Then the kidnapper laughed and said, Say goodbye to your wife. And with that, he pulled her through the back door and slammed it shut. Doris's final scream echoed long after the metal door slammed shut. For a moment, Stephen felt like the whole world disappeared. The sounds in the warehouse became distant, faint, like someone had pressed pause on life itself. His breath shook. His hands trembled. His heart felt like it was breaking open. Doris, he shouted, voice cracking with a pain no man should ever carry. His guards rushed toward him, but Stephen pushed them aside and sprinted toward the back door. He grabbed the handle. It was locked, padlocked, fresh. The kidnappers expected a fight, and they planned for a backup escape. Stephen's fists slammed against the metal until his knuckles turned red. "Open this door. Open it right now. Don't take my wife." His guards pulled him back before he injured himself. "Sir, stop. We need to move strategically." Stephen's chest rose and fell like a man drowning. He turned to his security chief, eyes wild with desperation. "They took her. Again. They took her through this door. Find a way to open it. Now." "Yes, sir," the chief shouted, waving at two guards. "Get the cutters." But time was slipping and every second counted. Stephen pressed his forehead against the cold metal, whispering, "Hold on, Doris. I'm coming. I won't let them hurt you." Meanwhile, behind the door, Doris stumbled as the kidnapper pulled her through the dark corridor behind the warehouse. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Please, let me go," she cried weakly. The masked man tightened his grip. "You talk too much." He dragged her down a steep ramp that led to an underground car park. A small black SUV waited there with its engine running. Doris's heart sank. This wasn't just an escape. This was a second phase of the plan. Another kidnapper stood beside the SUV holding a phone. "Janet says plan B. Take her to the safe house. The boss wants to see her himself." Doris froze. The boss. There was someone above them, someone even more dangerous. The first kidnapper spat angrily. "That billionaire ruined everything. We need her as insurance." Doris shivered from fear. She prayed silently, clutching her trembling hands close to her chest. "Stephen, please find me." And with a hard shove, she was thrown into the back seat. The door slammed. The SUV rolled into the night. Back to Stephen, the door breaks. Metal cutters sparked as the guards cut through the padlock. "Faster!" Stephen shouted. "Yes, sir." With a final twist, snap! The padlock fell. Stephen pulled the door open so fast it banged against the wall. He rushed inside the long corridor, calling, "Doris! Doris, where are you?" His voice bounced off the concrete walls, but the corridor was empty. Cold, silent, dead. The chief arrived behind him, scanning the area with a flashlight. "They took her underground," he said quickly. "Look at these tire marks, fresh. They just left." Stephen's heart clenched. "Then we go after them." The chief hesitated. "Sir, whoever planned this is dangerous. They knew your schedule. They knew when Doris would be alone. They knew you would come without backup." Stephen turned slowly. His eyes were filled with a cold, burning fire. "That means someone close is working with them." The chief nodded. "And if that's true, they won't stop until they get what they want." Stephen clenched his jaw so tightly it hurt. "They can take my company. They can take my money. They can even try to take my life. But if they think they can take Doris from me..." His voice dropped into a whisper filled with deadly calm. "They have made the worst mistake of their lives." "Track their vehicle," Stephen ordered. "We're trying, sir, but what?" "They removed the license plates. No GPS tag. They know our methods." Stephen took a step closer, anger rising. "Then find another way." The chief swallowed. "There is one more thing, sir. We checked the corner cameras of the warehouse. And?" "They were disabled. Professionally." Stephen's breath stopped. That meant one thing. This is bigger than kidnappers. This is an operation. "Yes, sir, and look at this." The chief handed him a small object they found near the door, a phone SIM card. Stephen stared at it. "Whose number is this linked to?" When the chief answered, Stephen's blood went cold. "Janet, sir, your wife's close friend." Stephen's world shook. Janet, the girl who always came to the house, the girl Doris trusted, the girl Stephen sponsored. His hands balled into fists. "She betrayed us." The chief nodded. "And whoever she works for, they want your company." Stephen looked into the distance, rage burning through him. They will never win. Never. In the black SUV, Doris struggled to breathe. The kidnappers argued in front. This was not the plan, one growled. We were supposed to finish today. Another replied, well, plan changed. The boss wants her alive for something else. Doris looked up weakly. What? What do you want from my husband? Please don't hurt him. The driver turned slightly, his eyes cold behind the mask. Oh, we don't want to hurt him. We want to break him. Doris's heart dropped. Why? What did he do? The man chuckled. He succeeded. That's enough reason for powerful people to hate him. Doris closed her eyes tight, whispering, Stephen, please come fast. The SUV turned into a narrow, forest-like path outside the city. No lights, no houses, no roads, just darkness and danger. Back at the warehouse, Stephen wiped sweat from his forehead. His shirt was torn, his hands bruised, but his mind was sharper than ever. We're going after them, he said. The chief shook his head. Sir, you need rest. You're shaking. You haven't even... Stephen snapped. My wife is out there in the dark with people who want to kill her. Do you expect me to sit down and rest? Silence. No one dared speak. The chief bowed his head. As you command, sir. Stephen grabbed his phone. He called someone. A deep voice answered. Stephen, it's late. What happened? Stephen inhaled sharply. I need you. Someone kidnapped Doris. I want access to every security camera in the state. Roads, corners, tunnels, private feeds, everything. The voice paused, shocked. Stephen, that's illegal without authorization. Stephen's voice dropped. Then consider this a personal favor. You owe me. A long silence. Then, all right, sending you login access now. The chief blinked. Sir, who was that? Stephen slid his phone into his pocket. Someone who understands that when it comes to my wife, there are no rules. As the team prepared to chase the SUV, a young guard rushed in. Sir, we found something important. He held a tablet screen towards Stephen. Stephen's eyes widened in shock. It was CCTV footage from a street camera outside the hangout. And in the corner of the screen, a familiar face stood watching Doris, Janet. But she wasn't alone. Standing beside her was a man Stephen knew very well, a man from his business circle, a man he once trusted, a man he never thought would betray him. Stephen whispered the name, his voice filled with shock and anger. No, not him. The chief stepped closer. Sir, who is that? Stephen's face hardened, his heart turned cold, his eyes filled with fire. He whispered, He is the last person I ever thought would touch my family. Before the chief could say another word, Stephen grabbed his jacket and stormed out of the warehouse. The guards followed quickly. The engines roared to life. The chase was about to begin. The engines roared as Stephen and his security convoy sped out of the warehouse compound like a pack of hungry lions released into the night. Red and white lights flashed across the dark road. Dust rose behind the tires. But inside the lead vehicle, Stephen sat in silence, his chest tight, his jaw locked, his eyes burning with a mixture of heartbreak and deadly determination. On the screen in front of him, the CCTV footage replayed again and again. Janet standing on the street corner. And beside her, a tall man in a dark suit, hands in pockets, face half hidden by shadows. A man Stephen had once trusted like a brother. A man he had invited to his home. A man he had shared business secrets with. Kenneth, Stephen's business rival. The same Kenneth who had tried 3 times to buy Stephen's company. The same Kenneth whose oil blocks had been rejected by the government after Stephen's company won the bid fairly. The same Kenneth who smiled too much and laughed too loudly and pretended too well. Stephen whispered his name again, this time with pain. Kenneth. The security chief turned sharply. "Sir, Kenneth did this?" Stephen nodded stiffly. "I didn't want to believe it. But the footage doesn't lie." The chief clenched his jaw. "That means this isn't random kidnapping. This is planned, organized, funded." Stephen looked out of the window. "They took my wife, and they think I will break. They think I will walk away from everything I built." His face hardened. "They will learn who they messed with." Meanwhile, in the dark forest road, the black SUV carrying Doris sped into a hidden route deep behind the outskirts of Lagos. Tall trees created a tunnel of shadows. The headlights bounced on the rough ground. Doris sat in the back seat, her hands tied, her heart racing. The man in the passenger seat hissed into a phone, "We're 10 minutes away. Prepare the place." A distorted voice replied, "Good. Bring her in through the left entrance. Make sure she sees the boss." Doris's breath caught in her throat. The boss, the real mastermind behind all this. Her voice shook. "Why are you doing this? Stephen has never hurt any of you." The driver laughed. "Oh, you don't understand, do you? This isn't about pain. Then what? This is about power. Your husband thinks he is untouchable." Doris's voice trembled. "Please, let me go. I won't tell anyone I saw you." The man at the front turned around slightly. "Oh, we know you won't tell anyone." His eyes narrowed. "Because you are never leaving that house unless your husband agrees to the deal." Doris froze. "What deal?" The man smirked. "You'll see." Stephen's chief tapped the tablet rapidly. "Sir, we found something." Stephen leaned forward. "What is it?" The chief pointed to a blurry frame from a traffic camera. "Their SUV passed Ganny Road just 5 minutes ago. That area leads to 2 places, the old timber market or the abandoned estate." Stephen's eyes sharpened. "They won't go to the timber market. Too public, too many eyes." The chief nodded. "Exactly. So they must be heading to the estate." Stephen sat up straight. "Call in backup team 2. Block all exits from that estate. I want every corner sealed." The chief hesitated. "Sir, do you want the police involved now?" Stephen shook his head sharply. "No, not yet. They might panic and hurt Doris. Let's get there first." As they sped through the roads, Stephen closed his eyes for a moment. He saw Doris standing in their living room 2 days ago, laughing as she tried to teach him how to cook jollof rice. "Babe, you're cutting the onions too big," she teased. Stephen laughed softly in the car, his chest tightening. He remembered how she hugged him from behind, saying, "You know I love you more than anything in this world, right?" His fingers shook slightly. "I won't lose you." "Never," he whispered into the dark. The black SUV entered the abandoned estate, a place filled with tall grasses, broken walls, and empty buildings swallowed by the night. They stopped in front of a house with no windows and a rusted metal gate. The door opened. Doris was dragged out, her eyes widened in horror. A man stepped out from the shadows at the entrance, slowly, calmly, confidently, with a wicked smile. A smile Doris knew. "K. Kenneth," she whispered, her voice shaking. Kenneth adjusted his expensive wristwatch like he was greeting a visitor. "Hello, Doris," he said smoothly. "Welcome to the place where your husband will finally learn he is not king." Doris gasped. She never imagined Stephen's rival would stoop this low. Kenneth stepped closer, touching her chin lightly in a sickening way. "Stephen is smart, but he has one weakness." Doris's body trembled. "And what? What is that weakness?" Kenneth smirked. "You." Doris turned her head away in disgust. "You're a monster." Kenneth smiled coldly. "That may be true, but I am a monster who will finally get what he wants." He looked at his men. "Tie her inside, make her comfortable. When Stephen arrives, we begin the negotiation." Doris struggled, screaming, "Stephen will find me. He will bring you down." Kenneth chuckled. "Oh, I'm counting on him coming here. That's where the real fun begins." Suddenly, Stephen's phone vibrated. A text message, unknown number. He opened it. The message said, "Come to block 17. Come alone, or your wife dies." Stephen stared at the screen. His eyes hardened. His fury rose like boiling fire. The chief grabbed the tablet. "That's inside the abandoned estate. Sir, let me send in the team first. They're dangerous." Stephen shook his head slowly. "No, they want me alone. If they see anyone else first, they might kill her." "Sir," Stephen held up a hand. "But listen carefully. You and the team must hide in different corners, spread out. Wait for my signal. When I shout the code word, go." The chief swallowed. "What's the code word?" Stephen looked out the window, his voice cold. "Protect her." The guard nodded firmly. "Yes, sir." Stephen breathed deeply. This was it. Either he saved Doris, or he lost everything. He stepped out of the car, the night wind slapping his face. His legs trembled slightly, but his heart stood firm. He walked toward block 17. One step at a time. Into the darkness. Inside the abandoned building, Doris was tied to a chair, her lips trembling, her heart racing. The door opened. Kenneth walked in with a thick document. "The contract. Your husband signs this," he said, "and you walk free." Doris stared at the floor. Kenneth smiled. "He'll be here soon." The moment he finished speaking, a guard rushed in. "Sir, we have a problem." Kenneth turned sharply. "What problem?" The guard whispered, "Stephen is already inside the compound, and he is not alone." Kenneth's face twisted. "Not alone? With who?" The guard swallowed hard. "He came in with a whole unit. Special forces, military-trained men. They're surrounding the estate." Kenneth's face drained of color. "What? That wasn't the plan." Doris's heart leaped. A spark of hope lit her eyes. Stephen was coming, and he wasn't coming weak. He was coming like a storm. Kenneth threw the papers on the floor angrily. "Find him, now!" His voice thundered through the building. The guards rushed out. Just as Stephen reached the door, he placed his hand on the dusty handle and whispered, "Doris, I'm here." Then he pushed the door open, and everything went silent. Stephen pushed the heavy door all the way open. The room felt colder than the night outside. Dust floated in the light like tiny stars. Everything was quiet for a second, too quiet, as if the whole world watched him. He walked in slowly, every step loud in the silence. His guards were hidden behind pillars, eyes fixed, breath held. Stephen could see shadows move. He could hear someone whispering orders. He could see Kenneth standing by the window, his face pale and scared. And then Stephen saw her. Doris sat in the middle of the room, tied to a chair. Her hair was messy. Her dress had dirt on it. Her eyes were red from crying. But when she saw Stephen, something in her face changed. The fear melted into hope. Stephen ran to her. He dropped to his knees and fell into her arms like a man coming back from a long, dangerous trip. "Doris," he sobbed, voice breaking. "You're safe now. I'm here." Doris wrapped her arms around him and held him so tight it felt like they would never let go. "Stephen," she whispered, "I knew you would come." But danger was not over. Kenneth had been waiting for this moment. He tried to run toward a door at the back. Before he could, Stephen's chief barked a code word quietly into his radio. "Protect her." Like lightning, the guards moved. Men in black suits jumped from their hiding places. In less than a breath, Kenneth was on the floor with hands behind his back and a cold metal cuff around his wrists. The other kidnappers were surprised, rushed and confused. One by one, they were surrounded and controlled. The special team outside moved in, sealing exits and taking names. In the panic, one of the younger kidnappers, the one who had looked most afraid in the warehouse, dropped a phone. The guards picked it up. On its screen was a list of messages, names, timetables, bank transfers, proof. Stephen watched as the phone was handed to the chief. The chief's face changed from hard to very, very serious. "This is enough," he said, "enough to put them away for a long time." Stephen looked at Kenneth. He felt so many things: anger, sadness, betrayal. Kenneth had smiled at him at meetings. He had eaten at his table. He had shared drinks with him, and now he was tied on the floor like a caught animal. "Why?" Stephen asked, voice low. "Why would you hurt my family for money? For work?" Kenneth looked at him with cold eyes. For a moment he did not speak. Then, with a small, bitter laugh, he said, "You were always in the way, Stephen. You had everything. The contracts, the respect. I wanted what you had. I thought if I broke you here, people would take my side." He tried to make it sound like he had no choice, but Stephen saw fear behind the lie. Money had made him cruel. Then something surprising happened. Janet, the woman who had sold Doris out, stepped forward. She was not tied or masked anymore. Her face was wet with tears. Her old, kind smile was gone. She looked small and tired. "I'm sorry," she said. The voice sounded tiny. "I did it for the money. Kenneth promised to help my family. I was scared. I thought I could stop him later. I'm so sorry." Doris looked at Janet. For a long second she said nothing. Her chest moved up and down as she fought for calm. "You hurt me," Doris said softly. "You hurt all of us." Janet fell to her knees and cried. Stephen felt something break inside him, and then slowly begin to heal. He looked at Doris and then at Janet. He felt anger, but also a deep tiredness. The whole night had cost so much pain. The police arrived fast after the special team called them. They took statements. They put Kenneth and the kidnappers into police cars. The evidence from the phones and the messages was strong. The officers said the men would be charged for kidnapping, attempted murder, and fraud. They also promised to investigate everyone who paid or helped them. Stephen lifted Doris into his arms and carried her outside into the night. The sky was still dark, but the stars looked brighter. Outside, the convoy was waiting. The city lights seemed softer. People stopped and stared, whispering. Some cried, some clapped. Word spread quickly. Phone calls, messages, a short video clip of Stephen hugging Doris. The next morning, Stephen sat before the cameras. Bright lights and microphones pointed at him. The news was already awake with the story. Reporters asked questions. People wanted to know what happened. Stephen could have chosen to hide his face, to keep everything private. But he did not. He stepped up to the microphone and told the truth. He told the story simply, the way he wanted children to understand, how he loved his wife, how bad people tried to use fear to steal people, and how his security and the police worked together to save her. He named Kenneth and the kidnappers. He didn't shout at Janet when a reporter asked why she betrayed them. Instead, he said that fear makes people do wrong things. But people can still be forgiven after they pay for what they did. The country watched. Many people felt relief. Many felt sad. Some felt angry. A few felt proud that Stephen had not hidden the truth. The authorities listened. The police promised a full investigation into the case. The prosecutor said the people hired to do the crime and the people who funded them would face justice. In the days that followed, the courtroom filled with reporters. Kenneth and the kidnappers were charged. Janet was given a choice. If she helped the case and told everything she knew, the judge promised to consider her cooperation when it came to punishment. She cried and agreed. She gave names of the people Kenneth had worked with, and the way money changed hands. More arrests followed. The real people behind the plan were found and taken to court. The company boards and the oil community watched everything carefully. Stephen chose to step back from some parts of his work for a while. He wanted to be with Doris. He wanted to rebuild trust. He made plans to give more support to families who had been hurt by greed. He created a new safety plan for his business and for the city. He promised the public that he would change parts of the industry so bad people could not use their money to hurt families. At home, Stephen and Doris sat on the balcony as the sun rose. The morning was warm. A small breeze carried the smell of bread from a nearby bakery. Doris rested her head on Stephen's shoulder. They did not need words. The night had changed them. The danger had shown them what mattered most. "You saved me," Doris said quietly. "You saved me too," Stephen replied, "because you showed me how to be brave." They smiled. The world had been cruel, but the love between them felt stronger now. Not because it never broke, but because they chose to hold each other together when it did. In the weeks after, the court punished those who were guilty. Janet faced the consequences, but because she helped reveal the leaders, she received a lighter sentence and a chance to make things right. Kenneth and the main criminals were punished much more. The news called it a big victory for justice. One evening, after the trial, Stephen and Doris visited a small park. They watched children play and neighbors greet each other. Doris held Stephen's hand and looked at him with bright, steady eyes. "Let's never take a single day for granted," she said. Stephen squeezed her hand. "Never." They walked slowly home under the soft streetlights, their hearts quiet, full of a new peace. Justice had been served. The people who hurt them were caught. The country had watched and learned. Stephen and Doris had each other again. And when they opened their door, the house felt like a true home, warm, safe and full of hope. Outside, the city continued to hum, but for Stephen and Doris, the hard night had ended. They had closed the door on fear. Now, they would open a new door, one that led to healing, to truth, and to a life where love mattered more than anything else.